Dozens of studies have linked aspartame, the world's most widely used artificial sweetener, to serious health problems including cancer, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, obesity, seizures, stroke, and dementia, as well as negative effects such as metabolic derangement, mood disorders, headaches, and migraines. However, it is still used today in many foods and beverages. Why?
Well, I can answer that. Hi, my name is Mr.Amazo, and I'm here to give you advice that will lead you to live a long, healthy life, because I cover drugs, chemicals, corruption, and power. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I already know you're coming back anyway. Now on with the show.
Before we get started, we must ask, what is aspartame? Well, aspartame is a synthetic chemical compound composed of the amino acids phenylalanine and aspartic acid, with a methyl ester. When consumed, the ester breaks down into methanol, a toxic depressant that is extremely toxic to humans. In addition, methanol is used for plastic, paints, car parts, and construction materials. This is worrying since aspartame is present in more than 6,000 products, including Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, Kool-Aid, Crystal Light, and artificially sweetened drinks, sugar-free Jell-O products, Trident, Dentyne, and brands of sugar-free gum, sugar-free candies, condiments such as ketchups and dressings, and even in children's medicines and vitamins.
Well, you must be thinking, how did such a dangerous chemical get approved for consumption? Well, I can tell you that and more, but to break it down, it comes down to money, greed, and power. Here's why.
It all started in 1965, where a chemist accidentally discovered aspartame, or aspartame, in a lab. The chemical was presented to G.D. Searle, or Gideon Daniel Searle, founder of the pharmaceutical company named G.D. Searle, conveniently. Searle would file for aspartame to be approved for public consumption in 1973 by the FDA. However, back then, FDA testing was pretty lax compared to today's standards, and assumed that companies would conduct ethical trials and testing on their own. As a result, the FDA wouldn't bother to check the validity of reports themselves, so before you knew it, aspartame was quickly approved for public consumption. However, G.D. Searle would find itself in hot water when an independent scientist published his findings in a medical journal, demonstrating that aspartame was causing cancer in lab rats at an alarming rate. This sent the FDA into a panic, as they felt that they had not only been lied to and scammed, but also allowed a dangerous product into the mouths of hundreds of millions of Americans. The FDA would accuse Searle of doctoring data in order to cover up the negative effects of aspartame. This triggered a $500 million investigation into 4 of Searle's drugs, including the food additive aspartame. The FDA gathered a task force in order to scrutinize the testing and reports Searle had used to get its product aspartame approved, and what they found was an absolute nightmare.
So, what the FDA discovered was something truly horrifying. They found that the reports that Searle published and used to get approved for consumption were outdated. They didn't match up with the time and deaths of the rats they tested on. In fact, some of the rats they tested on would be decomposing for over a year before they finally wrote an autopsy about it. And by then, there was no significant findings they could find that could link it back to aspartame.
However, this wasn't going to go unpunished. The FDA was furious. They felt embarrassed, humiliated, and betrayed. How dare Searle take advantage of our honor system? How dare Searle believe that they were above the law? So the FDA did the only thing they could do, and that was to take Searle to court. The FDA were so disturbed and distraught with the findings of their investigation, aka the Bresler Report, that they had written a 33-page letter to the Justice Department alleging that G.D. Searle only allowed the FDA to see the results of tests which were favorable, withholding others. The agency recommended that a grand jury investigate if the company committed fraud. However, despite at least 3 pleas from the FDA, an investigation from the grand jury never took place. So despite everything, despite the mountain of evidence proving that G.D. Searle had committed fraud and was directly responsible for poisoning millions of unknowing, unconsenting, innocent Americans. Why was there no investigation? In fact, why did no arrests or litigation happen at all? Well, it's simple, really. It only takes a few bad apples to ruin the bunch. Let me introduce you to the fixer, Donald Rumsfeld, a politician, government official, and businessman who served as Secretary of Defense. He's one of the most controversial political figures of the modern era. Rumsfeld was one of the most connected people on the planet. He served under Nixon, Ford, and was a key cabinet member during Bush Jr.'s presidency. This man was ruthless, who very much had a Machiavellian mindset when it came to solving problems, which meant it was no surprise that he was an ex-naval captain. Why do I bring this man up? And how is he connected? Well, G.D. Searle did go to trial despite no federal investigation occurring. However, the public perception of their company and their product got so bad that in 1977, G.D. Searle hired Donald Rumsfeld to be their CEO, and he called in every connection he had to get aspartame approved. So when Reagan was elected in 1981, aspartame was unanimously approved for public consumption. A new FDA commissioner was even handpicked by the Reagan regime. His name was Dr. Arthur Hayes. Arthur Hayes will be remembered by history as one of the most corrupt FDA commissioners of all time. Shortly after Hayes' appointment, he would overrule FDA's agenda to ban aspartame, approving the product for public consumption. Arthur Hayes will resign from his position of FDA commissioner, with his career being mired in controversy and hush money, as Hayes would be notorious for taking bribes to get different food products approved by many different food industry conglomerates, such as McDonald's, Pepsi, and Dr. Pepper. G.D. Searle, however, would continue to make hundreds of millions of dollars by selling aspartame globally, to the point where aspartame brought in 40% of G.D. Searle's income. Meanwhile, people continue to get sick from eating aspartame, reporting the same symptoms that the FDA predicted would occur in humans from consuming the product in the Bresler Report. All those years ago, those symptoms include blindness, cancer, brain tumors, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, seizures, kidney damage and decline, pregnancy abnormalities, sperm damage, liver damage, and so much more. The amounts of people who had their lives ruined or taken by unknowingly ingesting aspartame is incalculable. However, the only reason why the public knows this information is because of the passing of the Freedom of Information Act that forced the FDA to reveal this knowledge for all to see. However, despite this knowledge, aspartame is still readily available for consumption in numerous different products worldwide. This is likely due to the strong and aggressive PR campaigns run by G.D. Searle, as from the start, Searle implemented this strategy to recover from the public spat with the FDA. A notable example happened in October of 1987, where a private investigator reported, G.D. Searle has paid $3 million a year for a 100-person public relations effort by the Chicago office of Burson Marsteller, a former employee of the New York PR firm said. Burson Marsteller has hired numerous scientists and physicians, often at $1,000 a day, to defend the sweetener in media interviews and other public forums. Burson Marsteller himself declines to discuss such matters. This is not an uncommon tactic, as recent reporting based on internal industry documents reveals how beverage companies such as Coca-Cola also pay third-party messengers, including doctors and scientists, to promote their products and shift the blame when science has their product linked to serious health problems. So, dear viewer, my advice to you is to subscribe to me to stay informed and to stay the hell away from aspartame.